For most of us, the rhythm of our daily life is tied to the sun. It comes up, it goes down. Simple. But what happens when that rhythm completely breaks down? What if you live somewhere the sun stays up for 22 hours straight, or doesn't set for 6 months at all? It's a crazy puzzle, right? But as we're about to see, the solution is surprisingly elegant. So here's how we're going to break it down. First up, we'll see just how tough fasting can get in these extreme places. Then we'll get into the science of why daylight varies so much, and push that idea to its absolute limit, the 6-month day. After that, we'll explore a really clever universal time solution, and finally, we'll dig into how this idea is actually rooted in a fresh interpretation of sacred texts. All right, let's dive right in with a very real, and I mean very difficult scenario. We're talking about the challenge of fasting during the summer in Oslo, Norway. I mean, really think about that for a second. Could you go without any food or water for more than 20 hours in a single day? This isn't some hypothetical question. For folks trying to follow the local sun up there, this is their reality. Wow, this really lays it all out, doesn't it? On a summer day in Oslo, the sun doesn't even set until almost 9:30 at night, and then dawn is already breaking around 1:20 in the morning. That gives you a window of less than 4 hours to eat, drink, and re-energize for the next day. The rest of it, over 20 hours, is all fasting. You can see how that just becomes incredibly hard, maybe even impossible to sustain. So why on earth does this happen? It's not because the planet is spinning at different speeds or anything like that. Nope. The answer is all about our planet's wild journey around the sun. The source we're looking at has this great term for it, a zigzag orbit. Now, it's not a literal zigzag, of course. It's a cool way to describe how the Earth is tilted on its axis. As we make our year-long trip around the sun, that tilt means different parts of the planet are leaning into the sunlight for longer. That tilt is what gives us seasons, and it's what creates these insane daylight hours near the poles. Okay, so if summer in Oslo sounds tough, let's take this whole idea to its most logical and frankly absurd conclusion. At the North Pole itself, the traditional rules don't just bend, they completely break. Get this. At the North Pole, the sun comes up over the horizon, and then it just stays there for months. 6 months later, it finally sinks back down, and the pole is plunged into a half year of total darkness. One sunrise, one sunset. That's it. That's the entire year. And this is where we hit the wall. If your rule for fasting is from sunrise to sunset, what in the world do you do when that period lasts for 6 solid months? It's pretty obvious the traditional method just doesn't work here. There has to be another way. And that leads us to the really fascinating proposal from our source material, a universal, standardized clock for things like prayer and fasting, one that doesn't depend on the whims of the local sun. Just look at this comparison for Oslo. The local sunset time is all over the place. It swings from 9:27 p.m. in the summer to not even 3 p.m. in the winter. But with this proposed method, it's a consistent time, 18:01 or 6:01 p.m. every single day of the year. It's predictable, it's stable, and it works no matter what the season is doing. So you're probably asking, where does this idea of a standard time even come from? Well, the justification is found by going back and re-examining the sacred texts of the Quran, looking for clues about the grand mechanics of the universe. This first verse is seen as a huge clue. The idea of inclining shadows is interpreted as a reference to the predictable clockwork movement of the planets and stars. A shadow's movement isn't random. It follows a divine, understandable system. Next up, this phrase, broad pathways, is linked directly to the idea of orbits, and specifically those zigzag orbits caused by Earth's tilt that we were just talking about. The interpretation here is that it's like a celestial map, a system just waiting for us to figure it out. This verse here, we strip it of the day, is seen as a direct description of the situation at the poles, where day is literally taken away for months at a time, leaving only darkness. By acknowledging this extreme case, the text implies that there must be a workable system even for the people who live there. And finally, these verses really drive the point home. Everything in the heavens, the sun, the moon, all of it is moving in a predictable, calculable orbit. Nothing is chaotic. It all swims along a fixed course. So when you put all these pieces together, you get this huge shift in thinking. The argument is that timekeeping shouldn't be based on the variable, sometimes chaotic local sun. Instead, It should be based on something far more constant and reliable, the Earth's daily rotation on its axis. This creates a uniform standard time all the way up and down a line of longitude, from pole to pole. And the conclusion? Prayer and fasting times could be the exact same every single day of the year. It's a profound reinterpretation, a really deep theological argument that leads to a brilliantly simple, totally modern answer. The solution isn't to stare at the sun, it's to look at the standardized, globally agreed upon time that we all carry around in our pockets. Just follow the clock. Now, this is a solution for one very specific, very fascinating challenge. But it leaves us with a much bigger question, doesn't it? In a world that is full of complex problems, where else could we find these kinds of elegant solutions by combining the deep principles of ancient wisdom with the precision of modern technology? Definitely something to think about.